contrast to most of August 2026 energy, this week offers a bit more of a transition than a climax. The Leo Solar Eclipse is now behind us, but the eclipse cycles are developmental rather than instantaneous. And we still have our Pisces lunar eclipse coming up at the end of the month as well. So, this week's astrology is going to be a bit less concerned with dramatic beginnings or endings and more interested in how we are choosing to respond to what has already been initiated. The celestial conversations this week are really emphasizing discernment, some integration, and also faithful participation, especially as we lead into Virgo season. So I think this week's overarching theme is really about living into what has already begun for us. And I invite you, as we go through this week's astrology, to start to notice how the astrology itself is shifting more from inspiration towards embodiment. Welcome back. This is Onesce Astrology, and my name is Mariana. I bring you a unique perspective that blends both Hellenistic and modern traditions and looks at things in a more collective, holistic way to invite all of us to consider how these things are affecting humanity as a whole, rather than a more individualistic or personal expression through the horoscopes that we've seen added into astrology in the last few hundred years. So if you're into that sort of thing, I invite you to like, subscribe, follow along, and yeah, let's open our minds and consider the connections that these types of events offer us. Now, I want to mention that this week is August 17th through 23rd, and I am coming to you a day late. I apologize for that. It's been a busy time full of all kinds of exciting developments, including that I am going back to school. So I just started some online classes yesterday at Maharishi International University, and I'm studying consciousness and human potential, which I think will fit very nicely into my cycles and harmony cosmology and the work that I do on Onescence. So thank you for your patience. And just to kind of let you know, I think the flow of this week, early in the week, we are still integrating the Leo Solar Eclipse. This might look like taking more action, having more advantageous communication about our needs, desires, identities, and pursuing sort of balance or understanding within our relationships. Now, by midweek, we're really going to start needing to balance some of our optimism with more responsibility. And as we head into the weekend, I think there's going to be more of a clear seasonal threshold that we're all crossing together as we start to enter into Virgo season. Now, I want to emphasize that this week is really helping to prepare us for refinement rather than reinvention. So we're not being asked to come up with anything new right now. We're being asked to kind of double down on what we've already started, especially any intentions that we had at the Leo new moon and solar eclipse last week. I would also like to invite you to check out my app, the Onesce Dial, if you're curious about how astrology is filtered through the energy of your specific location on Earth through the lens of not only seasonal awareness and how the different hemispheres interact with that, but also to include the Sabbats, the solar cycle, and other cycles. Feel free to check that out. It is free at dial.onescence.com. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a bit late, but Monday we had quite a bit of energy coming through. It was inspirational in the realms of action, thought, and relationship all at once, and they may have been getting tested with regards to our maturity in these areas. We had Mars squaring Neptune, and this was about action versus uncertainty. We may have felt like our motivation was becoming more diffused or even idealized, a little less tangible. And there may have also been a bit of emotional reactivity or a pull towards more intentional response. And we were being asked to consider the value of slowing down before taking action. This is about embodying compassion without losing any discernment, having healthy boundaries, and redirecting our energy towards what genuinely matters to us. We also had Mercury trining Saturn. Excuse me. And this was about mental clarity, practical thinking, long term planning, having responsible communications about these things as well. And it was to highlight how our confidence is really supported through our preparation. So we may have felt like structuring creative ideas or turning our insights into sustainable action. So you can see there's a lot of kind of movements around figuring out and identifying what is going to help us move forward and achieve the actions or outcomes that we are desiring given our intentions. We also, and this was the last aspect yesterday, had Venus sextiling Jupiter, which is a bit of fun. That was about relationship growth, generosity, appreciation, beauty, creativity. It really supported any opportunities we might have through collaboration. Social harmony would have also been a theme, and also how gratitude itself can be an expanding force. And so that might have brought some lightness to things towards the end of the day. But again, a really interesting preparatory energy for Monday to start off the week. If you'd like to kind of reflect on how these are complementing each other at the start of the week, think about how Mars isn't asking us to force anything in Cancer, and how Mercury in its position is helping to provide some structure, as well as how Venus was reminding us all that growth can be supported by our relationships. Now, we don't have anything in particular going on today, but tomorrow, Wednesday, August 19th, we do have our first quarter moon in Scorpio. Now, the first quarter moon requires action. So whereas these aspects yesterday were encouraging us to kind of think about the actions taken and why they will work for us, where the boundaries need to be, to start kind of planning out a successful advance, the first quarter moon tomorrow is going to challenge us to start moving on that plan. And specifically, Scorpio is emphasizing emotional honesty, our processes of transformation, as vulnerable as they may be. It's asking for us to commit to whatever it was that we began with the Leo new moon. And there may be some productive tension. Challenges help us to see where the opportunities are. So if you do feel a bit of that tension tomorrow, just remember it's coming up for you to give you that signal that this is where your focus would be advantageous. It's also going to encourage us to face our discomforts with courage and to understand that our participation is a part of our transformation, and that we end up deepening self-trust and trust in our capacity through the processes of doing. And maybe that's not necessarily in and of itself motivating, but if we can go into things understanding that we're not going to have it all figured out to start, but the process of doing is going to allow us to learn what it is we need to know, so that by the time we have reached those outcomes, we have that confidence and security that we didn't at the beginning. Now, if you are specifically looking for either a deeper exploration into August astrology or other helpful resources, I have a lot of free information and content on my website, onesce.com. So go ahead and check that out if you're curious. There's stuff on habits, routines, plant medicine, the whole smorgasbord. So head on over. That's onescence.com. Now, we don't have anything else on Thursday the 20th, but by Friday, August 21st, we will see Venus opposing Saturn. Now, this is going to ask us about the maturity of our relationships. It's going to ask us how well we understand our boundaries, our commitments, and the spirit of reciprocity, how our relationships allow us not only to give, but also provide the opportunity to receive. And is that in equal measure, or are there places where we are giving too much, not receiving what is due, or vice versa? It's about helping us to develop and even express more of our honest expectations within relationship. It may also encourage patience and understanding for others and for ourselves. But ultimately, this aspect is helping us to strengthen what is genuinely sustainable in regards to our partnerships and connections. Now, we have quite a bit more coming through on Saturday, August 22nd. So, I want you to kind of view that day as an important seasonal threshold. We are completing one cycle while another is quietly beginning in the background. In specific, we are moving out of Leo season, which is about expression and confidence and authenticity, and into Virgo season, which is more about the practical applications, the getting it done, the daily work that's required to show up in our integrity, to express from those places of authenticity without losing sight of the foundations that help us to make it happen. Now, first, we're going to have the sun opposing the true node before it moves out of Leo. The true node is newly in Aquarius. And so this is going to ask us to consider how our individual expression is contrasted or complemented by the collective direction, whether that is our hopes for the collective and how we want to contribute, or maybe how we have been contributing for better or worse to the current status quo. This is about both identity and purpose and the intersections thereof. It may require us to reassess some of our priorities. We may feel like we need to have some course corrections, or simply that there is more conscious participation being asked of us. It encourages listening before acting and remaining open to guidance. So, to start the day on Saturday before we cross into Virgo season, we're really being given the opportunity to take a step back and consider where we are in relation to the collective progress that we hope to be contributing to. And there's no decisions that necessarily need to be made, no commitments that necessarily need to be declared, but to allow yourself to go within and consider these themes, especially before we get into the more organizational and practical participation of Virgo season. Now, as the sun enters Virgo on Saturday, we will have that beautiful season of practicality and perspective geared towards the daily workings of our lives coming in. So this is going to encourage a sense of stewardship, maybe a bit of refinement. We might also feel called towards more practical service, showing up for people more consistently in our lives, and also with regards to healthy routines, how we show up for ourselves, where the consistency is there, and what that leads to. This will require some discernment, so I'm really enjoying, again, that aspect that we have between the sun and the true node coming in first, because that's kind of opening up the door to more personal discernment already. And ultimately, I think this is helping us throughout Virgo season to translate the inspiration that we may have felt in Leo season into our everyday practices, into those commitments that ultimately may seem more mundane, but build our lives brick by brick. Now, as we move into Sunday, August 23rd, we have the sun trining Chiron, and this could offer a bit of healing through authenticity. So after we've had some time to consider what actions we want to take, maybe have some challenges come up that are helping us to understand where the opportunities are with regards to what we're hoping to achieve, and then that more pensive kind of idealistic reflection that we're brought into on Saturday with the true node and then the sun moving into Virgo. All of this is kind of building up and creating the opportunity for us to consider how our confidence and authenticity can become more grounded, how maybe there's some gentle restoration that could be brought into our lives, and where there's a need for practical compassion, right? And so we've got these big ideas and aspirations coming in from Leo season, and we're starting to synthesize them, bring them down, make them more compact, make them more applicable in the daily steps that we take. Ultimately, this is about self-acceptance and integrating our recent growth, right? We're not expecting more of ourselves than where we're currently at. And that doesn't mean we don't have goals to go through processes and develop in different ways and become more than we currently are. But without that realization of where we are, we can end up being really hard on ourselves for not being where we want to be. So recognize that yes, you can have goals, but where you are currently is equally valid, and that deserves its own attention, maybe some patience, certainly acceptance. And in doing that, we can more clearly see the next step and the next step and the next step. So give yourself that grace. Take the time to integrate anything that's been coming through for you, and then we can look ahead with even greater resilience going forward. Again, if you are looking for more free resources, please check out my app. Again, it's free. Same with the articles on my website, onescence.com. If you're curious, you can find the links in the description box either below or for the channel itself. Again, I'd like to conclude by reminding you of the week's governing theme, which is living into the changes that you've already begun. Now, we had that eclipse last week, which opened up this brand new chapter. And this week is inviting us to begin that new chapter with participation. The inspiration is going to become responsibility. Our expression is going to require some stewardship. And ultimately, as we tiptoe into Virgo season, I think we're being reminded how meaningful growth is sustained through our consistent care. I'd like to leave you with a few questions to consider before I close. And that would be, what part of your life is asking not for more inspiration, but instead for more faithful, consistent participation? That's going to be a good one to focus on this week. Additionally, I would invite you to consider what it is that you are being invited to care for more intentionally as Virgo season begins. I'd love to hear anything that you have to say on that or any of these other astrological happenings in the comments. Of course, please like, subscribe, share. If you're into this sort of thing, I am actively growing a community of collective-minded individual seekers. So if that's your jam, please join us. Help me to get the message out and to start spreading the news that we're all in this together, and that's okay. So thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care and blessed be.